is section 8.1. What we're doing here is talking about variation questions, and the two types of variation are called direct variation and inverse variation, and there will be a couple situations where you have multiple things going on at the same time, and that will be called joint variation. So the first thing you need to do is write down these definitions. Direct variation is up first. A direct variation equation will be written as y equals a times x. Your a value is sometimes referred to with a k instead, so it may look like y equals kx. This a term or k term is called a constant of variation. If you read this, or if you look at a sentence and I ask you to translate the sentence given to you would say y varies directly with x. So it's almost as if you have a word-for-word translation. Starting with y varies directly, you would write y equals, and then varies directly. Directly means you're going to multiply. Bring in your constant of variation first, k times by, and then whatever letter they give you, they gave x, you're going to use x. The next type of variation is called an inverse variation. If you can remember, inverse means it's going to be on the bottom. That's where you're going to look for your x term. That equation will be written as y equals a over x, or it could be k, y equals k over x. And in this one, you just need to remember that your x term will be on the bottom. If you look at a sentence and you are asked to translate, the sentence would probably say y varies inversely with x. So again, word for word translation, starting with y varies inversely. Start with your k term. Inversely means it'll be on the bottom, and then whatever letter they give you, x, right there. Joint variation just means you have multiple letters going on at the same time. For instance, in this sample, y equals a times x, z. Could be any letters, y equals a times m, p, q, any kind of multiple things. You might also see multiple or joint variation where you have one of them on the bottom. So you could have both a direct variation and an inverse variation in there. This would be a sample sentence. Y varies jointly with x and z. Again, word for word translation. Starting with the y term first, y, and then varies jointly. Jointly just means you're going to have many. So y equals a, there's your constant always coming in first, and then jointly with x and z, you'll have your x and z in your equation. On this page, what we're just going to try to do is decide what type of variation it is. Is it going to be direct, or is it going to be inverse, or maybe joint? And then once we decide that, then we have to identify what is the a term. Or again, this could be a k. Depending on which book you're looking at, they might refer to that constant term as a k term. All right, so the first one, y equals 3 over x. What you want to look for each time is the x term. Where is x? Top or bottom? Remember, if it's in the top, it will be joint variation. If it's in the bottom, it will be, if it's in the top, it'll be direct variation. And if it's in the bottom, it will be inverse variation. On this one, your x is in the bottom. That means this one is inverse variation. And then your a term, that's the constant value. Your constant value on this one is 3. Y minus 3x equals 0. When you look at this one, first off, it's not set up correctly. You need to have y by itself. So that would be the first thing you'd have to do. Make sure you get the y term to be by itself. Y equals 3x. Then look to see where is your x. Your x is on the top. That means this one is direct variation. And the a term is your constant term, 3. X plus y equals 5. Again, this one is not set up correctly. Getting your y to be by itself, y equals, and this one would be negative x plus 5. So in a question like this, they're trying to trick you. This is neither direct and inverse variation, uses multiplication and division only. There's no plus allowed, so this is not an inverse equation at all. The next one, 5x equals y, the whole thing is just written backwards. So if you like to look at it forwards, just flip it around. Y equals 5 times x. Then you can see that your x term is being multiplied. That means this is a direct variation question. And your constant term is 5. The next one, x, y equals 0.75. Again, remember, you must have your y term by itself. So the first thing you'll want to do is get that y out of there, or excuse me, get the y by itself, get the x out of there, divide out your x on both sides. Y equals 0.75 divided by x, then look to see where's your x term. Your x term is on the bottom. That means this thing is an inverse variation question, and your constant of variation is 0.75. In this next slide, what we need to do here is translate. So we'll take the sentence, x and y vary inversely. Inversely means it's going to be a divide question. So the first thing I want to do is just like a word-for-word translation. Y varies inversely with x. Y equals k over x. There's your translation, varying inversely. Y is 15 when x is 1/3. Y is 15 when x is 1/3. What we need to do here is solve for k. So the first thing we did was write the model. That would be this, right here. We've started the model. We have to solve for k. So write the model first. Find a or find k. Once we find our k term, we can rewrite the model with everything that we need in there for your k term. All right, so let's start with this one. K divided by 1/3. I need to get this 1/3 out from being on the bottom. So to do that, I have to multiply by 1/3 on both sides. That'll cancel. 1/3 times 15 is 5. I just found my constant of variation. K equals 5. So my true model, when I go back to my original y equals k over x, my true model will be y equals 5 over x. Okay, so that's the model once we found our constant term. Then we have to resolve. We're going to resolve with a and our new values. So now we're going to start this next part. Then find your new answer of y when x equals -10. Y equals, constant that we just found was 5. Our new x value is -10. And therefore y equals -1/2. So when you see these translation questions, what you need to do first is plug in the two original values, solve for k, plug that k number in to write your model, then use your model with the new values to come up with your solution. Here's another one. Let's try this one. Z varies jointly with x and y. Z is 60 when x is -4 and y is 5. Find z when x is 7 and y is 2. All right, so let's start with trying to write a model. Z varies jointly with x and y. We're just going to do a word-for-word translation on that. Z varies jointly with, so bring in your constant term first, varies jointly with, jointly means it's 2 letters. There's nothing in here that talks about being inversely related with, so that means they both have to be direct variation. They're going to both be on the top. Z equals kxy. So all I've done so far is the translation piece. Z varies jointly with x and y. Okay, now I'm going to use my first set of numbers. Z is 60, x is -4, and our y term is 5. This will allow me to solve for k. 60 equals -20 k, and therefore k is -3. Okay, so I'm going to use my value. I will then be able to write my model. The official model is what I get once I have that k term. So my official model will be z equals -3 xy. There's my model. Now I'm going to resolve and plug in my new values. Find z. -3 times by. What are my new x and y numbers? X is 7, y is 2. Z equals -3 times 7 is -21 times 2, -42. z equals negative 42. All right, on this next slide, all we're doing is trying to write an equation. So this is just translations. First one, r varies inversely with s, word for word, in the order that you see them, going left to right. R varies inversely. Inversely means it's going to be on the bottom. Don't forget to put your constant term always up on the top. So it'll be k over s. You might want to try these first. Put the tape on pause, try these first and see if you come up with the same things that I'll come up with. Number 2, z varies jointly with x and the square root of y. Word for word, z. Constant term k varies jointly with x, so jointly with x I'm going to multiply, and the square root of y, square root of y, there you go, z equals kx square root of y. Number 3, p varies inversely with the cube of m. P, get your k term in there, p varies inversely, inversely means it'll be on the bottom, cube of m. There you go, p equals k over m cubed. Number 4, m varies directly with, m equals k times by, directly with the square of n. Be careful, if this says square, not square root, square of n, and inversely with p. Inversely, so that means my p will be on the bottom. m equals k n squared over p. And number 5, z varies jointly with u and v and inversely with the square of w. So I've got multiple things going on here. Z, k times by, jointly with u and v. u, v, inversely with square of w. Z equals k uv over w squared. And I do believe that is it, yes. All right, so there you go. Simple explanations for inverse and joint and direct variation equations. You can now go to your homework for section 8.1.